Hey y'all, join me today as I take this bag of cranberries and turn it into a great Christmas gift. And today I'm going to be making some Christmas jam. I've never made it before. I'm not a great jam maker, so this will be a little bit of an experiment, which is why I'm doing it with enough time before Christmas that if it fails miserably, I can come up with something else. I'll share a link to my recipe in the description, but I'll run through the ingredients. So it requires about 3 cups of cranberries, which for me was one of the smaller size bags that you get at the grocery store. 1 orange, which has been peeled and seeded, and I've cut it into sections. 2 teaspoons of orange zest, and this is just the zest from the orange that I peeled here. 1 10-ounce package of frozen sliced strawberries. And you want to make sure that these are not, don't have sugar added. They're just sliced strawberries. And the recipe says to thaw them slightly, so that's what I've done. And then the spices are 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves and 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. It does use a lot of sugar. It takes 4 cups of sugar, which when you think about it, cranberries are a little bit tart, so you kind of need that to offset the tartness. Also calls for 1/2 cup of water and 1 packet of fruit pectin. So I'm using Sure Gel pectin. The recipe calls for liquid. I'm using the powdered, and I'll show you why in just a second. The recipe I'm using says to combine the cranberries and sections of the seeded oranges in a food processor and pulse them until they're coarsely chopped. My large food processor is on the blink, so I'm using a smaller one and just doing it in sections and groups. After you've got those coarsely chopped, it says to add the strawberries, the zest, and the spices, and continue processing until they're finely chopped, but you don't want them to be pureed, so you don't want this to be a liquid mixture. You just want everything to be well combined. So I've got the fruit, the cranberries, the orange, and the strawberries blended together, and you can kind of see the consistency. It's a little bit liquidy, but not a liquid, if that makes sense. So the recipe says to add water to this and then get it on the stove. I'm not doing mine on the stove. As I mentioned, I am a horrible jelly or jam maker. Mine never sets up, and it ends up being syrup. So I'm using an automatic jam and jelly maker by Ball, and I'll show you what that looks like and what that process is. This is the Ball automatic jam and jelly maker, and it makes jam making really easy for someone like me who never gets their jam to set up. So it's a simple process. You sprinkle the pectin in the bottom, then you add your fruit mixture, which is over here. And after a few minutes, after it's heated it up and brought it up to the right temperature, you stir in the sugar very slowly, let it cook for a specified amount of time, and then it will beep and tell you that it's ready to put your jam in jars. And I do a water bath for 10 minutes. So that's the process. I'm going to do that, and I'll come back when we're done. Just a quick note, you can do this jam on the stove. If you are used to making jellies and jams on the stove, more power to you. This works for me. It's what I use and what I have success with. It comes fitted with a little stir stick that fits down inside the assembly, and this stirs and keeps things rotating. Sprinkle the pectin over the bottom, like so. And like I said, I'm using a powdered pectin. The recipe itself, which they cook it on the stove, they use a liquid pectin. So I've never made this recipe. I don't know if this will be successful or not, but I certainly hope so. And then you add your fruit mixture. Sort of spread it around. A bit messy with the fruit. It's sticky. But that orange zest smells so good, I gotta tell you. It's tempting to just eat the orange. Spread that around. Put the lid on. Oops. I always add a little bit of butter just to reduce the foam. And you press the jam button, and it will automatically default to the time that you're going to cook the jam. Hit the enter button, and as you can tell, it starts stirring and heating up. So I'll let that go. It will beep when it's hot enough to add the sugar. So the jam maker just beeped 4 times after 4 minutes, and that let me know that it's time to add the sugar. So I slowly add the sugar, and you can tell that the stirrer continues to rotate, so it gets mixed in. And it's heating up the whole time I'm doing this. The base is heating up the bowl and getting it to the proper temperature. So that's 4 cups of sugar that I've added. And I like to just sort of scrape down the sides a little bit so that I don't miss any of that goodness. Put the lid back on and let it continue cooking. I've seen recipes for Christmas jam or cranberry jam using apples and cranberries, and they've all noted that cranberries and apples both have a high amount of pectin in them, natural pectin, so you don't need to use any additional pectin. Just because I've had so much trouble with my jam setting up, I went with this recipe with the strawberries and the cranberries and added the pectin. So the jam maker let me know it was time to take the lid off and get the jam in jars. You can see it's really steamy, bubbling. I'm going to take the stirrer out. First I got to get a pot holder for that. This is really hot. I'm going to shake off some of the juice that's on there. I don't want to miss any of that goodness. I'm going to get it in jars. So I'm going to fill my canning jars. I'm going to leave a 1/4 inch headspace, and I'm going to water bath them, which is one of the ways you can preserve your jam. You can also freeze it or put it in the refrigerator. I'm just going to give this a stir and kind of make sure things are mixed up in there. And then we're going to get it in jars. These have come out of the water bath. They were in there for 10 minutes at a full boil, and I took them out. The recipe said it makes 6 half pints, and that's exactly what I got when I followed the recipe exactly. So I don't know if you can tell, that is just a gorgeous deep red color, beautiful jelly. So I'm going to let these set up some more at room temperature. Not move them, keep them here, and hopefully have some nice Christmas jam for gift giving. The Christmas jam set up beautifully. Really liked this recipe, and it tastes phenomenal. So since this is for gifts, what I've done is I've added a little fabric cover and a little bow and put a little holiday tag on there. Put it in a basket with some other jams that I've made. I've got pepper jelly and a golden plum jam. And since this is an egg basket, I'll probably put some hippie chick eggs in there and give it for a gift. Hope you're having a great day where you are. Thanks for dropping by the Hippie Chick Homestead. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you would. It helps my channel, and I appreciate your support. Take care, y'all.